Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, it's your host, Sean, and about that. My tongue is tied around my eye teeth. I can't see what I'm saying. Let's try this again. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We've bellied up to the bar here on this March 11th. Before I get too far and before I get into everything, I'm going to say happy birthday to my son, Sean, who just turned 30 years old. And so happy birthday to him. He's down in Florida now, enjoying good weather all the time. But I figure on a day like today, as the most dreaded day, in my opinion, in America, is only just over 30 days away from us. And if you don't know what that is, that would be April 15th. And if you own a business, March 15th. And that would be the dreaded tax day. So why not have somebody come on that can actually tell us how we can keep our money and maybe explain to us who this new economy, this global economy that we're dealing with, how it can benefit us. So joining us all the way from what I've heard is probably the cleanest city in America, in the Americas, I guess we could say, but the cleanest city in Canada, the author of Capital Offences, it is Mr. Paul Musson.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
Stupendous as always, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. So Paul and I are going to be talking about who the economy benefits, but before we get too far into all those things, let's go ahead and take care of some house cleaning around here, as always, folks. As always, you got the big board over my right shoulder for sticker and a cause. If you got something you believe in, something you're supporting, something you want other people to know about, you can reach out to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all those different locations. Our website is the abovethebarpodcast.com. Our email is abovethebarpodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to us. Let us. My best friend just texted me, as I mentioned, Sean's 30th birthday, talking about he just turned 30. Reach out to us. Let us know what you got going on. We'll read about you live on the air, and we'll put your sticker right here on the big board, folks. All right. Next thing we got to talk about here, folks, is our sponsors, the people that pay the bills around here, and that's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Coxsackie, Schoharie, Delmar, and Clifton Park, North America's. They got them in Canada too, there, Paul. There are Budget Blinds in Canada. Look at that. Hey, Sean, you can't be old enough to have it. Mark, I got them, brother. Everybody's wondering now how I got a kid that old. It's all the grays in here. But they are North America's largest custom window treatment company, handling everything from blinds, shades, shutters, drapery, you name it. They got it. Everything that you could ever imagine. They handle the measurements for you. They handle the installation for you. If you're looking for it, make sure you're reaching out to your local Budget Blinds. And if you're in the capital region, they're having a pretty doggone good sale. It is buy two shades, get the third one free. That's right, folks. There is nothing free in life except for that third shade if you reach out to your local Budget Blinds. If it's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Coxsackie, Schoharie, Delmar, and Clifton Park, they'll be more than happy to help you out and take good care of you. And as always, if you tell them you're there to belly up to the bar, regardless of what sale they got, they're going to give you an extra 5% off. So make sure you're reaching out to your local Budget Blinds. Do you ever use Budget Blinds up in Canada there, Paul?
I have not.
Oh, I can't believe that. Well, make sure you reach out to them.
All right.
Say, all right, folks. So all that stuff is done. So we're going to talk to Paul. So now I got to ask this question first before we get into, your book and your 30 years of experience in this world. Now you're in Canada. How can you help me out though, from an economy standpoint, or how the financial system, is it the same financial system? Let's just ask that right away. Is your financial system the same one I'm dealing with?
For the most part, all central bankers in developed economies, Western and Eastern, are pretty much using the same playbook, and we're all suffering from it. And in fact, I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago, and this economist was talking about how fertility rates around the world have gone down, and the global fertility rate is actually slightly lower than the replacement rate. And he puts it down to interest rates that are too low, that caused too much housing demand and drove housing prices up and made them unaffordable for the younger generation.
Oh, okay. We're gonna have to roll that one back. So he's saying that because of the interest rates and the economy, we have a lower birth rate. Am I understanding that? But like the basics of it?
Exactly. And in America, the average age of the first-time home buyer is now 40 years old.
I saw that. Well, it's interesting that you bring up the home buyer thing. I was talking to my mother; she lives with us, and I made the comment to her about. I remember when I bought my first house in 2001. I got an interest rate around 6%, 6 or 7. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And telling my dad, I was like, "Yeah, this is what it is." And my dad being like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Mine's over 9," and he called right away and refinanced. And I thought, man, that's interesting. My mother goes, "Son, do you know what our interest rate was on our first house?" And they got married in 72 and bought their first house in like 78 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know. She goes, "It was 20%." And I was like, my God. She goes, "Yeah, it was 20%. But this is something I love to talk to folks like yourself about, because people talk about housing prices. And she goes, "But do you know what we paid for that house?" I was like, no idea. She said $20,000.
Yeah.
And I always ask the question, I'm going to ask you this question. So in this new financial system, are things more expensive, or is my money worth just less?
Well, both. So your money constantly gets devalued every year because central banks increase the money supply faster than the economy can produce stuff. And so the money prices of everything continuously goes up. So if you have savings and you're not earning enough interest in your bank account, you're having capital extracted from your money and given to somebody else. And I can go through exactly how that happens. But in particular, house prices have gone up even faster than the general rate of inflation. And so the home price to income has gone up significantly in most developed economies. So if you look at Canada, for instance, for many years, the average home price to after-tax income was around 7 times. It was sort of ranged between 6 and 8. I think now it's about 12 times. So people have to save that many more years for the down payment. And even if they manage to come up with a down payment, their income in the main cities would probably not qualify them for a mortgage. So for instance, in Toronto, the median income is, let's say, $85,000 Canadian.
Okay.
But to qualify for a mortgage for the median priced home, you have to be making $250,000. So even if you save for the down payment, the bank's not going to lend you the money. And so a whole generation is feeling priced out of the housing market, and they're angry. And a house price should not be going up. Like stocks should be going up. Stock market should be going up if their companies are increasing their profitability and investing and creating more capital. And we can talk about that as well. But a house is not a productive asset. Now, you said you bought your first home in 2001.
Yep.
The home that we live in here in the suburbs of Toronto, we also bought in 2001. Now, this just happened to be when the U.S. Federal Reserve started their housing wealth effect policy, where they drove interest rates to very low levels, despite the fact that the economy was still growing. And this is my opinion, that they were taking the advice of people like Paul Krugman and Paul McCulley, who worked at PIMCO, that the Fed should start a wealth effect in the housing market, i.e. take interest rates low, drive mortgage rates lower so people could afford more expensive houses and drive the prices of houses up. And then people would extract equity from their homes and spend it. And that looks good for GDP. The only trouble is that in a free market capitalist system, you're only supposed to be benefiting to the extent that someone else is benefiting from your actions. So whatever wealth you have is supposed to be a reflection of wealth that you have created, and cumulatively out there, other people have the same amount of wealth. But increasingly, we have a benefit at the expense of somebody else. So if you make money on your home, you're benefiting at somebody else's expense. So our home here in Mississauga,
Right.
since 2001, has gone up 4 times in price. Our house is not a productive asset. It's not producing 4 times the amount of stuff it did in 2001. It hasn't increased 4 times in size. We make 4 times because a younger couple has to pay 4 times what we paid for the same economic good. And so I'm 64. I'm a baby boomer. And to a large extent, the next generation is funding part of the retirement of baby boomers. Now, don't get me wrong, as baby boomers, we haven't done anything wrong. We haven't broken any rules. We played the game as we were told we should. We went to school, we worked hard, and then we got on a housing ladder.
Okay.
And central bank policy helped to drive housing prices higher at the expense of the next generation. And the next generation is not too happy about it. And this is going to be, unless we change things, this will be the first time in modern history that the next generation will not be better off than the one that preceded it. And this is an awful legacy for us to leave to our kids.
It's funny that you mentioned that about the legacy side to it. I talk about this with my kids all the time. Like, how are they supposed to, the job market is not increasing. It was probably 10 years ago. I remember reading an article that said it was maybe even longer than that. Gosh, now I think about it. It was the first time in world history where businesses were making more money, but employees' salaries weren't matching the percentage increase.
Yeah.
And I just heard this the other day, and I'm curious how this may tie into each other with what you're talking about. We hear that the economy somehow is doing better, at least down here. We hear, 50,000, it hit over 50,000 points. I can still remember on the news the first time it hit over 10,000.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, remember, it's a billionaire's game. They don't lose. But have we shifted in the economy standpoint with this system to where if you can't afford to save, and some of it, listen, I went through the majority part of my life where I could not afford to save. Not that I didn't want to save, not that I didn't feel the need to save. And these people with this BS of, well, look, if you just put $20 a week away, think about how that'll grow for you. Hey, listen, man, at $20 was the last 20 I had to get gas to be able to get to work. So I mean, is that the real shift though in the system where we've said, yeah, hey, look, it's doing better if you can afford to save and put that money in there. Is that what they've really done to us?
Yeah. So let me back up. I will answer directly your question, but let me just back up 1 second. You're talking about the stock market, and that's like Dow Jones 50,000 points or whatever. The vast majority of stocks in America are owned by the top 10%. So this is from the government statistics. The top 10% of income earners in America own 87% of stocks and mutual funds. The bottom 50% own 1%. Right. So
that's insane.
That's an issue, and it's gotten worse over time.
And Nancy Pelosi has it all of it, and exactly, she has all of it.
Yeah. Now there should be inequality in terms of wealth, but it should be based on your efforts and your contributions, and it should not be at somebody else's expense. If you benefit other people, so for instance, if you make bikes for a living and you make 10 bikes a week, and I decide, well, I'm only going to make 1 bike a week because I'd rather goof off and go bird watching or whatever. Well, guess what? You're going to have 10 times the wealth of me, and you deserve that.
Right.
Hasn't come at my expense. But increasingly, people's wealth is coming at the expense of somebody else. So when a stock market, when it was rising, for the most part, it was a symptom of an economy that was growing. So if a company, I was an investor, right? So we invest in companies and we would allocate our clients' capital to them. And those companies would put our clients' capital to productive use to create more capital. They would improve their customer value proposition. Their profit would go up. They would hire more employees. They would pay them more. That higher profitability pushes the share price up. And if most companies in the stock market are all doing that, their higher profitability pushes their share prices up, and that pushes the stock market up. So the stock market going up was a reflection of really good stuff going on in the economy where everybody is benefiting. Starting in earnest in 2001, central banks, I like to say, started sacrificing the mainstream economy on the altar of higher asset prices. So what they started doing was focusing on driving stock markets higher first and hope that that action would drag the economy up with it. Well, theory will tell you that that would not work, and it hasn't worked. All that's happened is it enriched the top 10%. Now, don't get me wrong, these top 10% are not evil people. They haven't done anything wrong, nothing, definitely nothing illegal.
They've just benefited from it.
Just benefited from it. Now, it's not a conspiracy theory. I do believe that central bankers thought that driving interest rates to 1% or 0% and printing trillions of dollars to buy assets and drive the stock markets higher and housing prices higher, buying trillions of mortgage-backed securities, would be good for the economy and everyone would benefit. It also makes them look like heroes, by the way, right? But I do believe they thought everyone would benefit, but they haven't. And now we are in a situation where they've painted themselves and by extension all of us into a corner from which there is no easy way out. And there is a way out, but it's not without pain. And the current path that we are on is not sustainable. The math just doesn't work. And there are all kinds of things you can talk about. One example is your Social Security. So on the current path, in terms of contributions and benefits, Social Security is going to be insolvent by 2033. So what's that? 7 years?
Right.
It's going to be insolvent. So something needs to change. But no politician, and this is both sides of the aisle, by the way, nobody wants to make the difficult and very unpopular decision to fix it, because fixing it means, well, either we have to have people contribute more, or we have to have people take out less, or we have to have people start taking benefits when they're older than they are now, or probably a combination of all three. That's just it doesn't make any sense to get angry at the math. But politicians, they're smart not to say anything, because if they do try to address it, the other side will say, well, we won't touch it. And so vote for us.
Right. We see that they want your Social Security. We ain't gonna touch that.
No, exactly.
Well, we've been getting told for as far back as I can remember that it's not going to work, that the baby boomer generation was going to reach it, and there wasn't going to be enough money there. But the other side to it is, I'm hearing everything you're saying, and I agree with every bit of it, because it always makes me like when you talk about the top 10% owning 87% of the majority of the stacks. That's why I always when my favorite political term is, we're going to tax the rich. We're going to make the rich pay their fair share. And then I have to explain to people, you do understand they do not pay they don't pay the taxes you and I pay. They don't pay employment taxes. They don't pay federal income tax. They don't pay state income tax. And people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, they have 87% of the stocks. They sell a couple shares. They borrow against their shares. They hedge their bets and tell people how amazing they are. You should just give me money. And that's how all this works. Guess what, folks? You can't tax the rich. It's not real. But it also goes back to something that you said that I find very interesting when you said they're not evil people. That's actually, and you probably already know this. That's a very new idea that the rich are evil. I mean,
Mm.
that
Well,
actually started post the Great Depression. This idea that the wealthy were evil, and it came out of a Marxist mindset to kind of break down the society that we have today and the idea of capitalism by using a Marxist idea that see the rich are evil. You need to
mm,
get them so that we can all have part of their what they have. They're not sharing, and
yeah.
it was actually a Marxist communist idea
Mm.
to say the rich were evil. That's interesting that you brought that up. I don't mean to go off on
Well,
that
yeah,
tangent.
and even in recent history, I don't think most people would begrudge wealthy people their success because I think for the most part, their success didn't come at their expense, at other people's expense. So if people see like a famous sports person or a movie star or whatever, and they're living in a big, beautiful home and have got a nice, fancy car, for the most part, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but people don't get angry and say they don't deserve that and say, well, no, we pay to go watch them play or we pay to go watch them in the movies. We have the choice of not paying.
Right.
But, so we feel that we're getting something for what they're providing, and they're providing something valuable to many, many people. And so they're wealthy. And so for a lot of entrepreneurs, someone like Steve Jobs would be a good example, I think that, he changed the world in many ways, and
Literally. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he became a billionaire twice, and, so, I don't think anybody or I shouldn't say anybody, I'm sure there are some people who don't like him or didn't like him, but, he added value to society and he made a fortune. The trouble is today there are a lot of people who are making a fortune who are not contributing to society. So the finance industry, which I was a part of, has become far too big a part of the economy. The finance industry, while very important, doesn't really produce any capital of its own. It's simply there to facilitate the creation of capital in the private economy. So I was an investor. I would take capital that people have produced. So someone who made bikes, someone who was a salesperson, someone who was a sports celebrity, whatever, and they would give me their capital that they produced, not me, and I would allocate it to businesses around the world who are going to put it to productive use and create even more capital. So I felt I played an important role, but I myself was not producing any capital. Now the finance industry has grown bigger and bigger and bigger as a part of the economy. And so now the mainstream economy has got this huge financial sector on their back, as well as government growing bigger and bigger and bigger. Because government also, while very important, doesn't really produce any capital. All the
Yes.
cap- all the capital that the government spends, it obtains from the private sector, and it does so in one of three ways. Taxation, of course. It can borrow the capital from you, or it can print money. And I can explain exactly how your capital is taken from you when the government prints money.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, and I'm 100%. Look, folks, if you want to know what Paul's got going on, you can check out Paddington Capital MGMT.com. And it's not the band MGMT.
Mhm.
It's Paddington, just like the bear, Capital MGMT.com. And we're going to get into that, but I did want to ask you. So this this management company, you started it in 2022. It's not very old. It's coming out of like it's post COVID
Yeah.
kind of a deal. And if I heard you right, so you were just about 62 when you decided to go off in this adventure, or maybe even 60 if I'm doing math in my head right.
Yeah. So it was 3 years ago. So 61, I guess. Yeah. 61.
So what was the idea behind Paddington Capital Management? How was it going to be any different? And then we're going to get into the other stuff because listen, I need Michelle to still say nice things about me and send people like you, wonderful people like you to me. So I got to talk about that, but I'm more interested in the other stuff. I'm going to admit that.
Yeah. 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 Sure. So, yeah. So, I was very fortunate. I had a great career. I absolutely loved my job, loved my company, loved my team, loved my clients. And, if you're fortunate enough to be in that sort of situation where you love everything around you and the actual job itself, then you tend to do a better job and you can't wait to get at it. And you just want to do it better and better. So my whole career, we were always trying to figure out how we can be better investors. How can we make fewer mistakes? How can we make the mistakes less costly and stuff like that? So I loved it all. But my great passion became communication. And so a big part of who I am is intellectual honesty. And there are various reasons how I got to this. It's been a long journey. But I have a free blog called Paulitical Economy, which people can sign up for on the website. And at the end of every blog, every post, I say, be free and do no harm. And if you focus on being free and focus on doing no harm to anybody else, financially, physically, emotionally, it's almost impossible not to have a positive impact on the world. And then you can do all kinds of other great things, but just focus on those two things. And I've been focusing on that since, I don't know, the last 40 years, I think. And it's a lifelong journey, of course. And so part of that is intellectual honesty. So when I was talking with my clients who were stockbrokers and financial advisors, I would explain what was going on in the world in very easy to understand terms because I wanted to empower them with knowledge, with truth of what was actually going on so they could go and explain it to their clients, empower them in their business, make them better business people. And over the years, I was getting more and more feedback, say, like, you're the only one who really talks this way. And thank you for explaining it to us. You should really write a book one day. And so I thought, yeah, well, maybe I will. I don't know. And so I started writing my book in 2019. And I couldn't finish it because I was still working, and it's long hours. And so I decided that if I want to finish this book, I'm going to have to leave my employer. And I put a succession plan in place and everything. The team was ready to go without me, put it that way. And
No, Paul, go ahead, play golf. It's fine. Don't worry.
Exactly. Yeah, we're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
We got this.
Yeah. So, and it's a great team. So, yeah, it was just time, and communication became my even greater passion than investing. And I still love investing. But so I decided to set up my own company, and I consult with my former employer, which is great. I haven't really looked for new business yet because I'm so busy still promoting my book and with my blog. And then we'll see, But I'm just having fun. And Sean, it's been so amazing, the feedback that I've gotten from people who have read my book, who read my blog. Because when I started my blog, I was just sending it out to my wife and my 3 daughters, so they would understand what's going on. And they were forwarding it to their friends, and people were emailing me out of the blue, said, "You don't know me, but I received this from somebody. Can you put me on your list?" I said, "Yeah, but." And then I looked this person up, vice chairman of RBC Capital Markets, a portfolio manager over here, a school teacher, and
wow.
So because I use easy to understand language, I don't use complex terminology because I want everybody to understand. And
that's the toughest part right there. I got to pause you for a second. That is the toughest part. I have a cousin who's like 20 some years younger than me. And he's like, his wife manages a hedge fund. He's he's part of a PE. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, what does this term mean? And he'll and I know he looks at me like, you old fart. How do you not understand these things? And he'll send me messages back like, okay, this is what it is. And I'm like, all right. And he's doing all right. He's got a house in Boston, a house in Miami, and a house in DC. He's doing all right for himself. But I'm like, explain to me. So you break it down into easy to digest language.
Exactly. And that's how my book is written, very easy to understand terms. So, not to intimidate people at all. Because I think the average person is very smart, particularly when it comes down to deciding what to do with their own hard-earned capital.
Amen.
They don't need central bankers telling that they should consume more and you're saving too much, because they don't like it if you save too much, right? They want you to spend.
Oh,
They think it's
yeah,
good
I
for
guess,
the
man.
economy. Complete nonsense. And so, and I use analogies in my book to help people understand. And it's step by step. And one of the best feedbacks I've had is, or my favorite, anyways, and I've had lots of great feedback on my blog. Somebody emailed me and said, "You don't know me, um, but somebody's been forwarding this to me. I just wanted to thank you. But I read this every week. I can't wait for it to come into my inbox. And I never feel like you're talking down to me. And you've explained so many things to me I didn't really understand before. And we have adult children. And every week, your post is a subject of discussion at our dinner table, where now we can actually have a conversation about what's going on because you've empowered us with an understanding." So that just made my day.
That's
And
awesome.
I don't even know who this person is.
That's all. It's funny. I got to pause you and go back to something. Robert Kiyosaki. Obviously, you know who that is. Rich Dad
No.
Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I know the title.
Right. And he's a big fan of saying savers are losers.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny hearing you say, and the central bankers, which I'm also a big fan of former President Ulysses S. Grant, who they say on his deathbed said, "I killed the banks," because he tried to. He literally tried to wipe the central banking off the planet. But it's interesting. They've until you just said it the way you said it, I never thought about that. They really have tried to do everything in their power to keep us from saving, because a savings account today, what's a high interest rate on a savings account? 1.2 or something like that. Like you'd be like, savings account's getting 1.2. No one puts money in a savings account. Like the fact that I even have one with my bank is only because they make me have one.
Yeah.
Like I think mine's got like $40 in it, and it's because I'm made to have it.
Yeah.
Like I never thought about it till you just said it that way. They really do try to force us out of that. Why? I guess I don't understand. What is the? I have my personal opinion, but why do you think that they're so anti-saving? I think it has to do with Reagan deregulating the banks, personally. But
So
as somebody with your experience level, I'm curious.
yeah, so in my opinion, again, I think it's not a conspiracy. I think it's just good intentions gone bad, combined with fallacious economic doctrine. So they use GDP, or gross domestic product, to determine if an economy is in good shape. So you might have heard of GDP before. So GDP, the way they calculate it is they add up all the final spending in an economy. So the final spending of consumers, government, businesses, and then they throw in net exports. 2/3 of all final spending in an economy is consumption, consumers. And so when you go and you buy a bike, you're consuming your capital by buying a bike. Now, this leads policymakers to believe that consumption is the fount of all economic prosperity. And they think this because your $1,000 that you spend on a bike provides $1,000 of income to the bike company, to the bike shop. But the important question is, what gave you the wherewithal to spend that $1,000 in the first place? It was the fact that you worked, that you created capital, that you saved and invested. So it's saving and investment by people, by companies, that produces capital, that gives people the wherewithal to then go consume. So consumption, or GDP, is a symptom of what's going on in the economy. So if there's lots of saving and investment and capital being produced, people are consuming more, then that's a really good thing. GDP is
All right.
going up, right? But if GDP is going up because you, instead of producing capital, you're borrowing money. You're running up the balances on your credit cards. GDP does not differentiate between spending that is supported by capital creation or spending that is supported by debt accumulation. It's all the same thing to those who are looking at GDP. And so I think this is one of the main reasons John Maynard Keynes, he used to talk about the euthanasia of the rentier class. He was trying to wipe out savers. And, it's just bad economic policy. And it's going to lead, well, you look at the debt situation in America. If this policy of encouraging consumption over saving investment was so successful, how come debt to GDP keeps rising every decade in America? You guys are over 100% now. In Canada, we're over 100% in terms of total government.
Listen, we have people that want to break away. We don't have entire what do you guys can call them, like Alberta? That would be
provinces, yeah.
Or entire provinces that are like, we're done with you people. You're blowing my money out. I mean, you guys are dealing with it worse than we are as far as that part of it is concerned. So let me ask this question then. Is there anything with all your experience and everything that you've done? And again, folks, we're talking with Paul Musson. You can see what Paul's got going on Paddington Capital, mgmt.com. Check out what he has happening. So is there anything that we could do today, even as consumers, to increase the value? And this is something I always think about, is the value of my dollar.
Yeah.
Can we do anything to increase the value of our dollar, or are we screwed?
Yeah, well, yes, you can. But unless we fix the system, we will all be screwed, no matter how successfully we invest. And it's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of what you can do, saving investment is a very good thing. And I can't give specific investment advice. I'm not licensed.
Right. I wouldn't ask.
Yeah, but to say what I do, I invest in the mutual funds that I use to manage, and they invest in the highest quality companies from around the world, strong balance sheets. So my capital is with companies that are producing more and more capital every year. So I don't know what's going to happen in the world, what policymakers are going to do, but I know what those companies are doing. And so that gives me some comfort. I have some gold in my personal portfolio. Now, gold is not really an investment for me. It's more of a hedge. I call it a central bank lunacy hedge. So the current path, as I said before, is not sustainable. And the reason gold and Bitcoin up until recently had gone up so much is because many people, many investors, are fairly confident with respect to what the government is going to do with this unsustainable situation. And it's a policy called financial repression. This is a really bad policy for the citizens, but it bails out the government. So what they do, they will increase the money supply steadily. They'll inflate away the value of all the money that they have lent to people. So you might have X amount of dollars in US treasuries, and you think, okay, I got a pretty good asset here for my retirement. Well, with financial repression, that asset's going to be worth half as much in 10 years as it is today, because they're going to inflate away your wealth. Every time they print money, they extract capital from the money that's already in existence and put it into the newly printed money. And they'll have yield curve control and stuff like that. And they'll cap
What is that? What is yield curve control?
So what they'll do is, if they're increasing the money supply at a rapid rate, then those investors who hold U.S. Treasury bonds, so people who've lent money to the government, will see that, the government's printing money. Therefore, when I lend them $10,000, by the time they pay me back, that $10,000 is only going to be worth $5,000.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm going to demand from the government that they pay me 10% interest instead of only 6 or 12%. So the government won't allow interest rates to go higher. What they will do is they will print money to buy as many US bonds as is necessary to drive the yields back down to 6. It's a little bit complicated. I'm cutting corners here.
No, but I mean, basically, they're printing money to buy their own
Debt
money, their own debt,
to
but they
stop the
know,
interest rate from going up.
but they know that that debt, no matter what, will go up. So it forces the interest rate down. If that doesn't sound like robbing Peter to pay Paul, as we're just waiting for another, what was it? And correct me if my date's wrong. 1925 or 27? What was the crash? 25 or 27?
29.
29. See, I knew it was in there somewhere. I was pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, and listen, folks, if you're listening to Paul and you have questions, obviously, like you said, he can't give you investment advice, but you can drop it on Instagram. You can drop it here. Let me know what questions you have. Maybe you're interested in the economy, how you can kind of what are some safe bets for you? I think you could answer that question. Like, what's a safe bet? I guess you could answer that.
Well, it really depends what happens. And so, I've got real estate. We own our home, of course. I've got some gold. I have some high quality stocks. I have some high interest savings account, which are not really high interest anymore,
Right.
but I like the optionality and that I can move that money quickly. But, if I go through each one of those, they could all do well, or they could all not do well. They might not necessarily be safe because it depends what price you're paying for those investments. So my house is not going to go away if markets crash, but the price of my house could go down significantly.
Right.
Gold, if the government resorts to financial repression, printing money to buy bonds to keep interest rates lower, then the price of gold would go significantly higher. But if the government finally decided to do the right thing and address the issue and stop increasing the money supply at a rapid rate and stop deficit spending and fix the problems, the price of gold could go down significantly. But if it did, then other assets might go up. So that's why it's important to have a diversified portfolio of things that you understand, things that you trust. And so if this happens, this asset will go down, but this asset might go up. It's impossible to know what's going to happen. So I couldn't say that this is a safe investment because it might not be.
You brought up all right, real quick here, folks. It's at New Scotland Spirits last call, folks. So we're gonna do it a couple minutes early because I'm gonna ask Paul a question that just came to mind to me. So raise the bar. Take a second to talk about what's in your glass. This episode is brought to you by New Scotland Spirits, handcrafted small batch whiskey made right here in upstate New York. At New Scotland Spirits, they believe whiskey should have character, maybe with locally sourced grain and real craftsmanship. Every bottle is bold, smooth, and built for people who appreciate a quality pour. So whether you're celebrating a win, winding down after a long day, or just enjoying a great conversation, that's what we're doing. Make sure the whiskey you're pouring is worthy of the moment. Learn more and find your bottle at newscotlandspirits.com. New Scotland Spirits, raise the bar on your next pour. All right, I want to go back to this printing money thing. Because in my mind, when you say print money, I think of a press and it's printing money.
Yeah.
First question, yes or no, is that what you mean?
No. It's a euphemism for increasing the money supply.
So really, back to my original question of how do I make my money? Could we make my money more valuable? There's no need for more money in the physical economy. Like there's physically enough either printed cash or ones and zeros to make money that we don't need physically anything more. So what I heard you say like it drives us, but wouldn't it be more beneficial globally for the US? And I'm just thinking our economy, but really any government's economy, to say we're going to print less money this year, or we're going to allow less money to come into the economy, raising the value of what's out there of what we have. Like I collect comic books. I know when there's less of them, it's worth more.
Hmm.
Raising that value of it, which would then, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, and if I'm thinking about this wrong, that would then in turn strengthen the U.S. economy and strengthen the U.S. dollar. It would stabilize pricing. Am I thinking about
Yeah,
that right? Because then you
absolutely.
can't be
Yeah.
asking for more money if it's just we're not producing it. It stabilizes the economy. We're still able to trade and make money. You can still raise, like there's not like there's a lacking. So if this is just an epiphany I'm having at this moment, and this is why, listen, go read Paul's blog because I'm having this epiphany right now. So why wouldn't it benefit, or who does it benefit to keep printing? Maybe that's the better question. Who does it benefit to keep printing if it would benefit us all to pause it?
Okay, so I'll answer that in two parts. The
Okay.
first part is you are absolutely right. So you've nailed it. Now, as an example, well, David Ricardo was a famous English economist back in the 1800s. He used to say that the optimal amount of money in the system is whatever it is today at this moment. Just don't ever change it higher or lower. Now, in America, in the last 30 years of the 1800s, you had very slow money supply growth, just over 4% per annum. At the time, there was an explosion of productivity. And so the amount of stuff that was being produced in the economy was growing faster than the money supply. So the price of everything was slowly going down for the last 30 years of the 1800s. So even
Right.
if you have flat wage, every year you were becoming wealthier in real terms because your money was becoming more valuable and it could buy more and more stuff. That's the natural state of a free market economy that is not distorted by central banks increasing the money supply. So, yeah, you've got that right. Now, who doesn't benefit if central banks stop increasing the money supply? Well, asset owners. So, driving interest rates lower and increasing the money supply has served to drive asset prices higher over the last 25 years. So, both housing prices, as we've discussed, and stock markets. So, and this is not a conspiracy either. This is a stated goal, stated aim of the U.S. Federal Reserve with their quantitative easing programs, which is printing money. Ben Bernanke talked about this, how through the what they call the portfolio effect, printing money and buying 10-year treasuries or mortgage-backed securities that would filter its way through the system and eventually get to equities and drive stock markets higher. And they thought that was a good thing because by driving stock markets higher, people feel wealthier, creates a wealth effect, and they will borrow on their assets and go and spend more. And that's good for GDP. Again, it's all about consumption. And so those are the people. Wall Street is harmed if the money supply stops growing. And they've got a lot of power.
See that, and again, just hearing it that way, that really, it almost makes me think. When we hear, and I hate that, like, tax the rich, come after them rich people. Really, the conversation needs to be stop making money, and not making money, but printing it.
Yes,
Stop,
exactly.
because once that happens, if you wanted to, and if I'm hearing the way you're explaining it, that's the real way to change the wealth gap. Is
Exactly.
when the value of my dollar is more, the wealth that gap decreases. Because I heard this once, and maybe you'll correct me if I'm wrong. In the 1950s here in the States, you could truly work at a gas station as a gas attendant and make enough money to raise a family
Yeah.
and supply what what your family needed. Possibly purchase a home, take care of your family. You weren't going to be, eating at the Ritz Carlton, but
Yeah.
you could do that and on one economy and on one paycheck.
One income. Yeah.
Right. And listen, there's tons of conspiracies why they destroyed the one income family so that the government can raise our children and all these other things. But you know, I, I mean, you guys up in Canada, like, listen, I feel for your economy. I have a good friend who's in Alberta. That's why I brought up Alberta. And
Yeah.
I tell him all the time when we talk about numbers, and I'm like, well, if it's like $100 Canadian or $100 American, what is that? Like a million and a half Canadian or something like that? He's like, yeah,
Hmm.
it's something like that. It feels that way. So
Yeah.
I mean, so how do we? So then, what can we? I mean, other than play the game by the rules that are out there, is there really anything we can do?
Yes, there's a lot, but it's not going to be easy. And so, step one is educating ourselves with respect to what's going on and why. And so, for so many people, it's not just young people, a lot of older people too are struggling and being hurt by this. And they know that they're getting screwed, but they don't know exactly how. And in my opinion, what has resulted is that when you don't know how you're getting screwed, but you know you're getting screwed, obviously you need someone to blame. And so then it's very easy for Republicans to blame Democrats and Democrats to blame Republicans. And then that brings forth the leadership that's going to foment that sort of divisiveness. And so I think it's the monetary system that has led to the divisiveness rather than the divisiveness that has led to this monetary system, just my opinion. And, we have a place in Florida as well, just like your son. My mom lives down there and our eldest daughter. And we've got lots of friends on both sides, Republicans and Democrats. We're all beautiful people, but some of them can't even talk to each other.
Ain't that
How
insane?
how are you going to fix the problem when you can't even talk to each other? When you think the other person is evil, and when you get them on their own, they agree on 99% of the same stuff. You know what I mean? And and I don't know if this is a strategy to purposely divide people. I hope it's not. That would be really awful. But educating people with respect to why they're suffering. It's not because of your neighbor, right? And with understanding, with truth, I also believe comes great empathy for those around you. And you become less angry. And it's going to take a lot of work, but that's the first step is understanding. There's an old saying that the people always get the government that they deserve. Now, you voted for them, so shut up. Well, yes and yes and no, right? So, you voted for them, but did the government do what they said they were going to do?
Right.
And B, did you even know what you were demanding from them? Do you understand what's going on? If you don't understand how the system works, you can't demand the right actions from our policymakers, from our leaders. And our leaders, policymakers, I believe, for the most part, are also very good people and want to do the right thing. But if they did the right but difficult thing today, it'd be political suicide. They'd be voted out of office so quickly
Oh, absolutely.
because we've all become convinced that we can have our cake and eat it too, that we can take more out from the system than we put in, and it doesn't come at somebody else's expense. All these myths, all this fallacious economic nonsense. And so it's a real big hill we need to climb, but it all starts with education and understanding. And thus my book, thus my blog, and there are others out here who are doing the same thing, trying to help people understand what's going on, because we can all see where this is going. And as I said earlier, it's not sustainable, and so it will end.
Oh,
There's no
100%.
question it will end.
It
Now,
has to.
we have a choice, though. Do we just keep kicking the can down the road and hope that something will come out of left field to save us all, and we won't have to make the hard but necessary decisions? Or, and it's not going to happen, by the way, or do we acknowledge what the issues are and decide together that we need to fix this system and make it a more fair system. And I've said this to a number of people. I have so much respect for America because when you guys decide to put your minds to something and work together, you're the greatest country on the planet. There's nothing you guys can't do, but you have to get there. And I do believe it'll happen because you know,
I gotta give you an applause.
maybe I'm an optimist, too much of an optimist, but I do. I have great faith in people.
I agree with everything you're saying, and it's funny when you make that comment about being able to communicate with each other. My mind always goes. I love Saturday Night Live. I try to catch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't catch it on Sundays because I'm not staying up that late. But there's a great. I know he's done it once. He might have done it twice. Tom Hanks on Black Jeopardy. Have you ever watched that?
No.
If you ever get a chance and you want to see what they're trying, in my opinion, what both sides of the fence are trying to do to us, you watch Tom Hanks on Black Jeopardy, and where he answers all the questions, and they all keep getting excited. Like it's like, so if the government tells you something, don't trust a word out of their mouth, and they're like, yeah, how'd you know? And he's like he plays like more of a country bumpkin kind of a character. And it's absolutely the truth. Paul, everything you said is spot on to me, and you really did open my eyes to a lot of stuff, especially with the idea that, if we could get them to vote to pause, printing more money, and I like the way that you finally clear, because honestly in my head it was when you say print money, I'm thinking there's stacks of bills still getting printed, not just an agreement of what'll be lent to banks, which is really what that is.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So any upcoming events, anything where you'll be speaking, if people want to get a hold of you, how are we going to go about that?
Yeah, so no upcoming events, but if they want to receive my free weekly blog, they can just go to my website, which you have there, and just put their email in, and they will get. And there's no sort of, it's free. All you do is put your email in, and you'll get a weekly update. People can contact me on my website, send me an email. I'll answer their questions. My book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. It's also an Audible version. So for those who like to listen, they can download that. And pretty much that's it. On my website, I've got a lot of interviews that I've done with people over the last year or so, and so they can listen to those as well.
Excellent. Well, look, folks, as I always say, if you're finding me through Paul or Paul through me, make sure you give that like, share, follow. Go check out his website. I know Paul's on LinkedIn. You can find him there also. You can see what's happening over on that side. So make sure you're giving all those likes, shares, and follows. Next week, folks, we're having a repeat guest from, God, I think it's been almost 2 years since we've seen Keith Irish and them. We're having back and talk about a shift from economy to punk rock. We're having Keith's going to be on from Punk as a Doornail. I forgot to put the album closer to me, but they've got a new album out. Let's see if I can read it from here. No, I can't read the name of it. I think it's something about a porch. But listen, Paul, you may not like punk rock music. I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you're a big Sex Pistols fan, and I had no idea about it. But he actually took a skateboard. He took a skateboard and turned it into a guitar.
Really?
And the dude's my age. And I'll tell you, it has the coolest sound of any instrument you've ever heard in your life. It's like, this is amazing. Now
That's cool.
Before we got a couple of seconds here before now the guest always gets the final word. And I'm going to give you the final word, and don't log off afterwards. So I'm going to give you that in a minute. Quick question. I want to just hear a yes or no answer. Flat tax, yes or no? Ooh, I got
no. Yeah, I can go both ways. Both ways.
All right.
Like when you say flat tax, you mean 33% across the board.
Yep. No more state income tax. No federal income tax. I get taxed on what I buy. That's it.
Oh, like a sales tax.
Yeah. So flat tax is like, that's what Germany does. There's no income tax, no federal income tax, no state income tax. You get taxed on what you purchase, and that's what runs the government.
I see. Yeah.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
It
That's how you
does.
boost it. Because you know what? I feel that's how you really boost an economy. If I got all my
Well,
money in my pocket, I'll boost my economy.
yeah, well, it does. But my only fear with that is, lower income families. I mean, I would love for us to have an unhampered economy that is creating so much wealth that we could eliminate tax across the board for the bottom 40% of income earners.
There you go.
You know,
Somebody
or
just introduced that bill. You saw that, right? In New York State, that was just introduced.
is that right?
I think it was New
But
York State.
but that should only happen if we can afford it. But I think we could afford it if central banks would get out of the way and let the economy, produce real wealth. Because I'm not anti-government. I'm not anti-welfare for those who really need it.
I
But
agree.
the trouble is like this economist who was writing back in the 1930s, Benjamin Anderson. I quote him in my book. He said that any country can have as high unemployment as they're willing to pay for. In other words, if you make the benefit so generous, you can boost your unemployment to ridiculous levels because incentives matter. And I can't blame people for taking advantage of it. But we just have to stop that from happening.
100% agree with you. All righty, good sir. So don't log off on me afterwards, but the guest always gets the final word. So what's our final word tonight?
Final word. Learn about what's going on and try to do no harm. Try to have a bit more empathy for your fellow citizens. They are not the problem. And and I think in time we are going to get there. And don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up trying to save. Don't give up trying. This YOLO, FOMO lifestyle. People, well, it's impossible. Like I said earlier, you won't even qualify for a mortgage. So why should I bother saving? Save, because I think things are going to change for the better. And then you'll be in a position to really thrive in the future.
All righty, folks. Be sure to put your stool in.
This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.